Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
The transatlantic slave trade was arguably the greatest crime in human history. In it, the rich and powerful, having invaded and occupied the countries of Africa and carried off everything they could carry, turned their attention to every one they could carry.
Shackled into the holds of leaking verminous vessels, increasingly British ships, men, women and children stolen from Africa were sailed across the seas as slaves. Anyone who has visited the Slavery Museum in Liverpool will have come away from it in something like a state of shock.
No reparation for this crime committed against a continent and against tens of millions of people has ever been made. In fact, it was the slave owners who were compensated when the trade was abolished. The descendants of the slaves are now plentiful, and among us in every former slaver country, some of them cry out for justice and organize to win it. One of those is Esther Stanford Kosi, spokesperson of the
problem. There is what we call maangamizi denial. And maangamizi is a Kiswahili term that we use to describe the transatlantic trafficking or enslavement of African people, but a continuum from chattel enslavement through colonialism to modern-day neo-colonialism. So we do not use the term transatlantic slave trade because that term implies that this was just a commercial venture gone wrong and actually minimizes the massive genocide that happened to African people and still continues to happen. We are still not afforded in the eyes and I think the hearts and minds of many white people and other non-African peoples our full humanity. There still isn't recognition that we are human beings who are entitled to justice, who are entitled to redress, who are entitled to recognition of our cause. And that is what we're really seeking to change with this reparations movement. We are seeking to counter what we call the maangamizi denial, in the same way that Holocaust, Jewish Holocaust denial, is a crime in many countries. But yet maangamizi denial happens every day, and it happens even by some of those who are deemed to be the most enlightened in society. So this shows the kind of real insidious nature of the Afrophobic, what we call white supremacist racism that we still continue to face, even at the hands of liberals and so-called white leftists who should know better.
Never was the word even more odious. Never was the word even more.
What the reparations movement is about is seeking to assert our dignity, our self-determination, and to restore our sovereignty, because basically we know what works best for us. Only we can repair ourselves, but we need to have the shackles removed. And literally, these shackles are not only economic, they're cultural, they're political, they're religious, in many ways. So reparations is very holistic. And the end goal is actually about the restoration of a sovereign Pan-African nation state that can incorporate not only African people on the continent, but Africans who have been dispersed in the diaspora. Because right now there isn't a recognition that we have a right to belong to Africa, that we are African people, and therefore we have a right to also benefit from her resources as much as we must share in actually helping Africa to overcome the challenges that she faces. And that is why the repair is essentially about us regaining our power, regaining our ability to fix ourselves, but also we must have the redistribution of wealth and resources. We must have everything that we need in order to restore ourselves and to make ourselves whole again. The essential aspect of reparatory justice must result in the transformation of the group that are seeking to repair themselves. And what's consistently happening is that the dialogue doesn't even allow us to define actually for ourselves. What it's going to entail is moving with many of the other global justice movements that are seeking transformation of the international economic order. And so what